Alright, so we're going through exercise 5b, and this is question 3b, which is asking us to, for each of the following, complete the square, sketch the graph, and state the range. So we have to do three things. Now we have y equals negative x squared minus 4x minus 6. The very first rule of completing the square is that I can't have any coefficients in front of my x squared. So right here, this negative is going to have to go. So what I'm going to do is take my pen and write y equals, and I'm going to take this negative out. Put a bracket there, and x squared. So that negative now is on the outside of that bracket, which means this negative 4x is going to become positive 4x, and this negative 6 is going to become positive 6. Now I don't have a coefficient in front of my x squared. I can complete this as normal. So next I'm going to have y equals negative. So I'm going to keep this. And I'm going to go x squared plus 4x. Now remembering when we're completing the square, we're taking the coefficient of x, which is 4. We're halving it, which is 2. Then we're squaring it, which is 4. And we're plussing that on. Now you can't just plus on a 4. If you're going to plus a 4, you're going to have to minus a 4 to make sure it balances out. Then we have our plus 6 here. I'm going to close the bracket. Now why did we do this plus 4 minus 4 thing? Well, the reason why we did it is because this right here, x squared plus 4x plus 4, is a perfect square, which means it can be neatly factorized into x plus 2 squared. Now this is where you have to be careful of your brackets. I'm actually going to have another bracket here, and then I'm going to have minus 4 plus 6, which is going to be plus 2. Now I don't like all these brackets that we have, so I'm going to put this minus back in. So I'm going to end up having y equals negative x plus 2 squared minus 2. So notice I brought that negative in, so now I have a negative here, and this positive turned into a negative. Now this is far nicer for us to graph now. Whoops, look what I've done. I just have a random bracket hanging around there. We don't want that. So now that we have this, it's going to be far easier for us to sketch because we can figure out what my turning point is. My turning point is going to be, if it's plus 2, it's going to be negative 2. And then if this is negative 2, we just keep it as negative 2. So my turning point is going to be negative 2, negative 2. And it's always important that we label things. So it's going to be negative 2, negative 2. Next, we have to think for a second. What does this negative in front of everything do? Well, that's going to invert my parabola. It's going to be upside down, which means my graph is going to look like this, like that, and like that, which means I'm going to intersect my y-axis. So where am I going to intersect it? Let me get rid of that. That was just for a demonstration. To figure out where I'm going to intersect my y-axis, I'm going to say, well, my y-int, to find my y-int, I'm going to let x equal 0. So then I come down a bit, and I'm going to go y equals negative, and then I could write it in 0 into that spot, plus 2 squared minus 2, which is the same as saying y equals negative 2 squared minus 2. Scroll down a bit more, which means I'm going to get y equals negative 2 squared is 4 minus 2. And then finally, my y-intercept is going to be y equals negative 6. So now I have to come all the way back up here and put in here, this is where my y-intercept is going to be negative 6. And I'm going to label that as 0, negative 6. So now I have my turning point, I have my intercept. I can now give this a sketch. It's going to look like this. Turning point, intercept. So we've completed the square, we've sketched the graph. Now I need to state my range. So let me change color. Let me go black. I need to figure out what my range is going to be. My range is going to be the set of all possible y values. And hopefully you can see here that this is going on for infinity in the negative direction, which means it's going to be from negative infinity. And then my last y value is going to be negative 2 here, negative 2, and it's going to be a square bracket. So it's going to be from negative infinity all the way up until -2. That's going to be my range. Hopefully this has enabled you to answer 3B, and I'll see you in the next question.